Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate Sue for setting this up and allowing us to have a conversation related to businesses. Now, today I'm going to pretty much stick to very simplistic business strategies and business organizational functions. My name is Greg Brightville. I am the owner of a company called Bright Baltimore Consulting and Training, and it's a small business. It's just me, where I go out and I do trainings and I do consulting, and my specialty is around LGBT populations and diversity and inclusion. But really, what I'm talking about today isn't necessarily the work that I do, but what I've learned doing that work, setting up that business, is understanding how I can build a business that fits my needs. And then for you all, how you can start a business that fits your needs and fits your individual structure that you want to have, but also what business you're doing. Now, today's conversation really is going to be about small businesses. If you are looking to start a huge business, it does start small. And so a lot of this still is very relevant to you. However, if you are here and you have $100 million of backing already from investors, unfortunately, feel like you came to the wrong presentation. But hopefully, if you have $100 million in backing, you probably have some very high paid people to help you with this. So hopefully you all are able to kind of enjoy a little bit about this. And for everybody here, a little bit of background about me also. I have 2 degrees. I've got my master's of business administration, and then I also work, my day job is in higher education, and I have a master's degree in higher education, and I work specifically at the University of Maryland, Baltimore, where I serve students in their student affairs division. And so really the small businesses that a lot of us are starting really are exactly that. They're small businesses. They may be an idea that you have. They may be something that you're doing on the side and you're like, hey, people will pay me for this. And that's in many ways where I am in my entrepreneurial journey. I have my job where I work 9 to 5, and then I was doing work for people, and then they started paying me, and I was like, money, a little bit of money's coming in. I should probably start looking at setting this up as a business. And really, when we're talking about setting things up as a business, it's just a way for you to organize things. And it's a way for you to start tracking things. Today, I'm really going to only stick to identifying common business types or organizational types. So I'm really going to focus on the most common. I'm not really going to go in depth on some of the bigger ones. So we're going to really briefly touch upon some of the corporate structures, but today I'm really going to try to focus on the structures that will meet most people's needs when they are starting a small businesses. I'm also going to kind of go over a little bit about the advantages and the disadvantages of each of those business structures. Hopefully, as you're listening, as you have this idea, I hope many of you either have started a business or are thinking of it. I want you to start thinking about the pros and the cons and where do these certain business structures fit for you and which ones possibly don't. And then I'm also going to try to have a little bit of time where we're going to just quickly give an overview of how to file your business with the state of Maryland. I don't have a lot of time to really sink my teeth into the long process of it, but I'm going to show you how to do it, and I'm going to explain a little bit about the cost or the lack thereof, if it's free, of how to start your business in Maryland and even with the IRS. Just as a question, is this an hour long or is this 30 minutes? Sue, I apologize, I cannot even remember.
So we're happy to do either. Take however long you need, and that's totally fine.
Wonderful. So I'm going to try to make sure that we're concise on time. But if anybody has any questions, Sue, if you don't mind monitoring the chat for me, and if it's something that's relevant to the conversation that we're having immediately, feel free to chime in and ask it. If it's something that you think we can wait till the end, I'd also think that'd be great as well.
Sounds good.
So many of you probably are embarking on businesses. And when we talk about an organization or a business type, it really is almost like legal business types. This is different than like how you will structure your business, but this is kind of like how you will track your business, how you will file your taxes, and how you're going to organize your business. And so really the most common ones that you're going to find, you have your sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship is like, it's just you, and it's just you. And it's just you doing business. Like if, let's say, for example, I don't do arts and crafts, but let's say, for example, if I'm an artist and I'm selling my art and it's just me and I'm a sole proprietorship, my business and I myself are all one and the same. And then you have partnerships, which is similar in many ways to a sole proprietorship, but it's two people. And so you have more, well, two or more people. And then there's different types within that. So if you are a partnership and it's like you and several other people, then you may want to explore partnerships and the different types, such as general, limited, or an LLP. We're going to talk about this more in a second. And then you have an LLC, which is a limited liability company. This is what I actually have my company registered under, which is different than a sole proprietorship, but at the same time, it's very much built for most businesses. We're going to go over all this. And then you have your C and your S corporation. Now, your C and your S corporations are where you're going to start building like corporate governance. Some of you may be interested in this. We're going to talk about this as well later on, but usually if you're exploring a C or an S corporation, I think you probably also should be exploring paying people to help you form these or finding like an advisory board. The level of legal requirements when you get into those two is much more substantial and much more rigid. So let's just jump right into what you need to be thinking about when you're thinking of some of these business structures. The most important things you need to be thinking about are taxes, liability, management, transferability, and formality. And so when I say taxes, I want to ask you, like, how do you want to be taxed in this? How would you like to pay your taxes? How are you currently paying your taxes? So this matters. Do you want to be paying your taxes as a one person? So just where you file your business and your personal taxes the same, like all under your tax return? Or do you want to start separating them where you're paying your business taxes and you're paying your personal taxes? Then liability. So looking at your company and your business, how much liability do you have? And how much risk is associated with that? So you need to know how you want to handle that. Now, if I'm an artist, let's go back to that, and I'm selling my art. You need to start thinking, like, what is your liability as an artist? So is there risk associated with it, where dangers associated? Could somebody sue you? Now, if you were an artist, most artists do not have much liability. But let's say, for example, if people start contacting you as almost a contractor, let's say somebody calls you and says, hey, Sue, I'll use you an example. Sue, you know what? I know you did some really great work on your house recently, and you did all of your plumbing on your own. How about I pay you to come do my plumbing in my house? Now, I don't know much about plumbing and legal restrictions, but you would be coming and fixing something for someone else. Now, let's talk about what your liability would be there, and then how would your liability be different if you were an artist? So if you're coming to do something that has possible risk, like let's say, for example, if I work on your house or you work on my house and we pay, and then it breaks, let's say a pipe burst, something damages, possibly somebody could get hurt. There could be other costs associated with that, with repairs. So automatically, if we're looking at this liability, you're automatically going to start saying, you know what, there is some risk and there is some liability. And if it goes wrong, how and I get sued, where do I want that money to come from? And we'll talk about more in a second about how these different business structures also organize liability. Management. So who's going to run your company? And are there investors that also want to help out? Do you want to have a board? Is it just you? Is it two people working on equal partnership? These are the things you need to start thinking about. Transferability. This is something that is still relevant, but not as much when you're trying to formally start your company. But how do you want the company to be passed on? So if you either sell it, or if you are going to give it on to someone, if you want it to be a family business, this is something you need to start thinking about. And then formality. So how strict are you willing to be when you build your business? How know yourself. Are you super organized with your finances? Are you willing to start building 2 separate bank accounts? Are you also interested in purchasing things under your business's name? So let's say, for example, you want to have a company car, a company phone, a company computer. You can, you could deduct those off your company's taxes, but you would have to start looking at it as like, okay, well, I need to be a little bit more strict with my purchases. And then what type of filing do you want to do? So these are all things when you're thinking about formality that you just need to know yourself and know your business. And so based on these 5 things, based on your answers to each, you're already starting to think about what business structure you want. And so these are questions you need to ask yourself before you really start your business journey. So let's talk about those 5 business structures. Now, the first one that is most commonly known about is a sole proprietorship. Now, a sole proprietorship, it treats the company and the person as the same thing. So if I was an artist, I would be Greg Brightbill, the artist. That's it. And my company, all the taxes I would pay on my personal income tax. And so every year when I go to do my taxes and fill them out, I would be calculating and pulling in my earnings from whatever I make, and I'd be putting that in my taxes. Now, here's the thing. Money made from a sole proprietorship, you are still taxed on anything. If Sue pays me $100 to come and let's say redecorate a room or to watch her pet if she has one, that's income. And so as a sole proprietorship, it's my responsibility still to report those because it's taxable. And now when you're talking about a sole proprietorship, that's where it comes into the taxes go still through me. I don't have to file a separate tax return for that earnings. Also in a sole proprietorship, as I said, the business and the person are the same thing. The business is not a separate entity. So the owner, it's me. I control everything. I make the decisions. It's just me. No one else is responsible for the decisions, and I'm also the one held accountable to those decisions. Sole proprietorship is also super easy to form. It's very low cost to form. In fact, in the state of Maryland, it's free to file as a sole proprietorship. And in fact, they don't always even say you have to file as a sole proprietorship, but it's free. And I always say if something's free and gives you extra safety, do it. Also, it's really easy for small startups. In fact, many small startups are already a sole proprietorship, but they didn't even realize it yet. So when I was doing consulting, before I started my business, people were paying me to do consulting. I was a sole proprietorship. I was making money. The money was going to me. The business to me, same thing. So most people already are a sole proprietorship when they're starting. Now, registration, as I said, is not required by Maryland, but it is still something smart to do. The reason being is when you register your business, even as a sole proprietorship, you are automatically setting yourself up to be able to grow, to have something in the system. It's just like there's not an appropriate, a CYA, like cover yourself. You do it. So a sole proprietorship really is a great model for a lot of small business and a lot of people that are starting. Now, some disadvantages of this. A sole proprietorship, as I said, the business and you are one and the same. So when we talk about liability, all liability, your personal assets, like my home, my car, my clothing, is all tied to the business. So if I'm doing a sole proprietorship and something goes awry and the risk and I get sued, they can come after your house. They can come after your car. They can go after you personally. So if you are a sole proprietorship, know what your risk is. And if you start thinking like, I do have a little bit of risk, you should start thinking about other business models. Now, similar to a sole proprietorship, you also have what's called a general partnership. Now, general partnerships come in different flavors. A general partnership is kind of the most simple form of a partnership. It kind of takes everything that is a sole proprietorship, but it makes it more than 2 people. And so again, the liability falls on those people. So if you are a part of a general partnership, again, the business and the people and their personal assets are all the same. And so the liability is on them. Pass-through taxation, again, you don't have to file separate taxes for the business. The taxes are paid based on how much each person earns in the partnership, and they pay their taxes when they submit and file their taxes, whether that's at the rear end or sometimes they may be taxed on the front end. Again, they share risks equally and the costs. It's simple to form a general partnership and it's free to register. However, it does require a partnership agreement. And now partnership agreements are pretty much just saying like, you need to start sitting down and thinking about, okay, if Sue and I are starting a company together, what percentage are we both taking? What level of input do we both have? How much money are we both putting in? In Maryland, if you start a general partnership, some people don't register, but you do want to register your general partnership. And you do want to have that partnership agreement. And there's a lot of, let me tell you, the internet's a great thing. You can look up templates for partnership agreements, and you need to have that because that will protect you in the end. Even if you don't think you need it, it will give you a lot better sleep at night, knowing that you're still protected. So now let's get into a little bit more structured business types. So you have a limited partnership and a limited liability partnership. Now, they're very similar to a general partnership, but what they do allow is a little bit more liability protection. Okay, so when we talk about limited partnerships and limited liability partnerships, that is when you start saying, okay, who is the general partner? So who's the one really making the calls? And then who is a limited partner? Now, a limited partner is kind of like investors. That's the person who's like, I love your idea. I want to make some money. I'm going to give you some money, but I don't want the risk. And so in this, the limited partners do not have the level of liability and risk that the general partner would have. Now, amongst this, the limited partnerships and the limited liability is when you're starting to get where even the risk and the liability of the general partner is mitigated so that it's not as much going after their personal assets. But in this model, taxes are still very similar to a general partnership. And so they're passed through taxation. And so you are only really filing your taxes on the rear end as if you're filing them normally. Similar to really a general partnership, you got to have that partnership agreement. And also, if you're building in limited partners, those are investors, you need to have this partnership agreement because you need to have, one, they're going to want it because they're going to want to know what's their role in this, but also you're going to want it because let's say, for example, if I have people that are like, Greg, you know, I love your idea, this consulting, and I want to give you $1,000 to help get you started. Great, I'll take your money, but I ain't giving you control of my business. And so I would probably look into a limited partnership because I want to still be the general person where I'm taking ownership of the business. I have the final call, but I do have people that have say, but also are giving me money. Now, a limited liability company. Now, this is kind of where we start getting into more legal protections. I am in an LLC. So Bright Baltimore is an LLC. So I did this to protect myself a little bit more because I was noticing that I was getting on, you know, I bought a house and I was starting to think, you know, even though I don't know if I have a lot of risk, it doesn't hurt because this still at least protects me. Now, a limited liability company is an unincorporated hybrid of kind of like more of like a corporate with a proprietorship, like a sole proprietorship or a partnership. And in this, it allows you more flexibility than a sole proprietorship or a partnership, but it's less restricted than like your S and your C corporations. Like I don't have to elect a board. It's just me. I'm the owner. What it does give you, it gives me limited liability. Now, what this means, earlier I asked you about what liability and risk you're willing to take. So going back to is if I'm a plumber or if I'm a contractor and I'm going out there working on people's houses and I recognize that I have some liability and I do something wrong. If I was only a sole proprietorship, that wrongdoing and they sue me, they can come after me, they can take me for all I'm worth. But in an LLC, I can only be held accountable and sued for the value of my business. So if I make a huge mistake, the worst that can happen is they come after my business. they can't go after my house. They can't go after my personal assets. They can't go after my spouse's assets. So if you think about it and you're like, oh, I need a little bit more protection, like I don't feel comfortable, like I'm doing some things that, gosh forbid, worst case scenario, I do have liability, you should probably start thinking about how to become an LLC. Now, an LLC, just like a limited liability partnership, you need to study up a little bit more, not a lot, but a little bit more, because you're not just, you have to file certain things with the state, and you have to do a little bit more prep of your business. But in the long run, once you kind of know how to do it, it's not overly complicated as if you were starting like a corporation. Same as before with taxes, it's pass through. So I file my taxes and my personal taxes. So every year, whatever little piddly dink money that I make in consulting, I put in and I file with my taxes, and I have to report that. It's not hard. The best thing is, and this is just general practice, and I'm gonna talk about this later, is if you think that if you feel like you may be a business, if you feel like you're making money, and you feel like you want to protect your assets, you should always be tracking your earnings and your expenditures. So if I make 20 bucks, then I need to write that down and have that detailed tracked. If I spend 10 bucks, then I need to track that. And so with a limited liability corporation, you should start really tracking your earnings, because you're going to be required to submit on a yearly basis your annual filing. And so you just need to know how much money you've spent and how much money you've earned, and then possibly where those expenditures, because then when you're at an LLC, you're starting to say, okay, I'm separating Greg Brightbill from Bright Baltimore. And Bright Baltimore may have certain purchases, assets, and things that Greg Brightbill doesn't have. And so you need to start tracking those, because it is taxable, and you can actually get tax credits for certain things that are registered under the, I can't remember which hand I'm using. There are certain things that are registered under the business and are almost property of the business. So like a website, I keep my website, I track that. Business cards, I track that. Even like, let's say, for example, if I'm spending money on gas to travel somewhere, I track that. So those are things that are the businesses, and that are not Greg Brightbill personal. So you have to start differentiating the things.
Hey, Greg, if you don't mind, we have a question about LLC that we could cover now.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. Should I file my business as an LLC to protect the name in Maryland if I do not plan to have any business income or expenses the first year after doing so?
Okay, so here's the thing. Maryland is an expensive state to do business in, and I hate it. Well, I love Maryland. But I hate, like, some states. Long story short, it's $300 a year to file your annual report. Now, $300 a year is not a lot. Well, it is a lot, but it's not a lot if you're making, like, if it is your income and you're making like $30,000 a year from it, you would do that. Now, if you don't plan on making any money, just know that even if you're not making any money, you still have to pay that $300 a year in the filing fee. And I'm going to talk about this in a bit. And you're going to have to still file your annual report to the state. So even if you're not, I did this and I made a mistake, because I registered my LLC and I thought it's cool, I have it in the background, I'm not really doing anything with it. And then I found out that I not only owed the annual filing fee, but there's also late fees if you don't do it, up to $500. So to answer your question, totally. You can register it as an LLC even if you don't want to do anything with it. If you just want to like reserve the name and just start the process, that's great. Just know by registering it as LLC, you are now under a little bit more scrutiny to do certain things and to pay some fees. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. I'll let you know if something else comes in.
Okay. So we're not really going to get into S&C corporations. An S&C corporation, so it's where like the business becomes its own thing. This is where you have certain tax processes. This is where it's a very complex organizational structure. It's really not very common amongst small businesses. because part of like an S and a C is where you kind of have stakeholders and even stock. Usually companies go from like an LLC to a S or a C corporation. So usually it's a little bit later on with your business building process. If you are interested in going and becoming an S or a C, I really would start there. I would talk to like an accountant. I would really start having conversations about how do you want to structure your business, because you're going to be taking on a lot more requirements and a lot heavier fines if you don't follow those requirements. So I'm not really going to stick to this one because there's a lot to it. Like S and C corporations would be like an 8-hour presentation of its own, and still you're in the introductory period. So just so that you all know, if you hear this, just know that you most likely do not have to go this far if you are starting a business. And if you are going this far, one, there's probably a lot of steps before that, and two, you probably should get both like legal and financial advice from people before you make this big jump. So an S and a C is not something you would just start up in an evening, whereas an LLC, a sole proprietorship, an LLP, general partnership, you can literally just like tonight go on to the Maryland Express website and start up. So now I do want to dedicate some time to showing you how to start your business in the Maryland Express Business Express website. But before that, there are some things that you need to do. So first off, I mentioned this earlier. If you have not already, start right now tracking your business expenses and your earnings, okay? I don't mean you have to know and have a detailed of like net revenue versus gross revenue. If you do know how to do that, definitely. But at the minimum, create like an Excel document that you are recording how much money you made, what date you made it, who it was from, and then even what you did. So just keep it, you want to keep track of these things. You're going to need these in the long run. And in fact, in many ways, some of these things could even be deductible. So if you have expenses, you can deduct some of your expenses off your taxes. So just track it. I mean, I make invoices for when I do business, and I keep those invoices. I keep a copy. If I get receipts, I keep them. If I buy something, I scan the receipt, I keep the receipt. So just as best practice, even if you're like, I'm a sole proprietorship, it's just me, as a best practice, just keep a little bit better track of what you're spending and what you're earning. Now, next, you want to register your business. Now, the Maryland Express website, I'm going to change screens in a second to show you what it is, but it really is something, it's pretty simple. And I do think that Maryland did a good job of setting it up. You're going to want to set it up, and I'm going to show you how in a second. But just so you know, I mean, some of the company structures, if you want to file it, it does cost a little bit of money. I'll show you in a moment the fee structure. A sole proprietorship and a general partnership is free. But if you want to get more of those legal protections, because there's more filing process, state regulations, there is a little bit of money that you're going to have to spend to file it, and then a little bit of money every year to follow up. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get a federal employee identification number. This is an EIN. Now, an EIN is great because if you're doing business, so let's say, for example, if I'm doing business with a company and they're paying me as a contractor, an EIN is kind of the equivalent of a business's social security number. It's like their number to say who they are. And the great thing about it is, if I'm doing business with somebody and I'm making money, most places still will require you to fill out forms like a W-9. If I have an EIN, I can use that, and I don't have to keep handing out my social security number. I don't know about you all, but I mean, I've had my social security number stolen several times. I don't know why. I think I got hacked somewhere. But anytime I cannot give my social security number because I don't know where it's going is a good thing. So an EIN is absolutely free. Just be aware, there are websites that make you think you're registering your business or you're through the IRS or Maryland, and they cost money. Just so you know, it is free to register for an EIN, And for a sole proprietorship and general partnership, as I said, it is free with the state. So if you're somewhere and you look at the website and it's not a .gov, then you're not at the right place. So I was recently talking about this, and I was looking to share with you all the website for to get an EIN, and I found one. It was like, and I just tested to make sure it worked, and it was like, oh, and now you owe us $295. That was because that was another company that was like, oh, we'll do it for you, and we're going to charge you. But it's kind of stupid because you could just go directly to the IRS's website and do it for free. So do it for free. Next, as I said, you're going to track your earnings. And if you are a company, even if you're a sole proprietorship, it doesn't hurt. You can file your earnings report. This just gives you a little bit more safety. If you are an LLC, you are required to file your report by April 15th. So if you're building a little bit more of a business structure, keep that date in mind, prepare in advance. Maryland has all the forms you need on the Express website. So it may seem intimidating because it's going to say, we want your annual report. Now, when you Google annual reports, it's going to take you somewhere terrifying. It's going to show you these huge books that corporations make of like, what is our mission, vision, and all this stuff. That's not what Maryland wants. Maryland just wants to know, who are you? How much did you earn? And what were your expenses? And you just follow through the form. If you have questions, they can assist you in that. So you can call them and say, I've got a question about this, help me out. And you will file that. So make sure that you are tracking it though, and take some time to file your report, because if you mess up and then they say, hey, you messed up on this, they can charge you a refiling fee. So just be extra careful, dot your I's, cross your T's, and make sure you know what business type you have and what business type you're filing for. And just have those things prepared in advance. It's like doing your taxes. Just have your stuff ready before you sit down to do the document. So something that I do want to show you, and I'm going to share in the chat, something that I found online that I think is absolutely fantastic. And I was going to try to make my own until I realized, you know, they did it better than I did. The Legal Food Hub, I don't know who they are, but they built an amazing decision tree for you in starting your business. Save this, you can download it as a PDF. It literally takes you from a journey of like, how do you want to organize your business? And it's like a yes or no. And it's like a decision-making matrix. This is amazing. So if you were like, Greg, you said a lot today, I have no idea. If anything else, save this document and use this a little bit to help guide you kind of in the general direction that you want to go with your business. And it'll help you know, for example, what type of business you should register as. So this is a great thing. Thanks, Legal Food Hub. You did a great job. Cash Campaign and Greg Brightbill appreciate it. So let's register your business. Now on the Maryland Business Express, it's egov.maryland.gov/Business Express. This is where you're going to just sign up. It's free to sign up for an account. When you get there, you're going to use this to figure out your documents that you need and to register your business. They also have a really great FAQ site. So for example, like if you're curious about, okay, well, what type of fees may I have to deal with? Their business FAQ site has all their stuff. And then the fees are all here. So this is going to help you know how much to spend, how much you should be spending when you file your business. So for example, a lot of these things you may not need because you may not need a certified copy for certain businesses. If you're filing, as I said earlier, for a sole proprietorship or a general partnership, it tells you right here, like it's free. But then if you're filing for a trade name, so let's say, for example, if you want a sole proprietorship, but you don't want it to be Greg Brightbill, the business, you want it to be Brightbill and Associates, you would then probably want to file for a trade name. And then if you want to be a LLC, then of course, then it gets a little bit more money, $100 to file. And then of course, as you get further, there are other fees. So for example, if you're looking to kind of like do articles of cancellation, if you want to dissolve your company. Now, if you do file, your company's there. So if you file as a sole proprietorship, it's just there. It's just chilling. A general partnership is just chilling. If you file as like an LLC or one of the more legally restricted ones that provide more liability protection, know that it's there. And they're expecting you to do something every year and to pay a little bit of money. Now, also in this, when you register, you can search for businesses. So if you want to see if a business is your name, so for example, my company is called Bright Baltimore. It's a pun off my last name, Bright Bill, Bright Baltimore. And you can see about your company. Anybody can look this up. So when you look through it, this shows you if you have a registered company. It gives you a little bit of information about it. It tells all this is public records. So just so you know, once you register your company, you're probably going to start getting mail. I even got free pens, which was kind of cool. Somebody mailed me a pen with my company name, and I actually kept it and put it on a shelf. I thought it was neat. So this tells you all the information. This is all in the public domain, so you can look me up. It tells you where my company is located. Now you know my address. My company is located at my house because that's it. I work from home, and when I do business, it's here. It tells you of your standing and your status. Status, if you're active, means you're registered. Standing, when it asks for good standing, what that means is you are A-okay in the state's eyes as it pertains to legal requirements. If you are not in good standing, that means you need to do something. So either you didn't file something, or you owe a fee, or you did something incorrect, or your filing was rejected. So this is something that you do want to check. Maryland is not good about contacting you when you did something wrong. They are not good about reminding you to submit your stuff. They are not good about much of that. So if you go in it's called not in good standing, unless you look it up, you won't know. So just keep an eye. It's like, just check every once in a while to make sure you're good. Check after you submit your documents. Check after you submit your registration. Also tells you filing history, and then what's called the department ID number. This is kind of Maryland State's number for your business. So when you sign up, you get this number. This is different than your federal EIN. Most often you're going to need your department ID number and your federal EIN when you're doing business. So just keep in mind, those are both equally important. When you do submit your documents, save everything and keep it filed. So whether it's, don't just file it away in a drive on your computer. I would say put it in the cloud, print out a hard copy, put it on a flash drive, because you're going to want to use those documents to refer back to. So all of this stuff, whether anything that you think is legal, keep. Now, to start your business, when you register, let's go back to Maryland Express. It's super simple. It's going to tell you your most commonly used filing questions. It's going to help you understand how you renew things. It's going to help you figure out what reports you're going to need. Once you create an account, I hope this doesn't give out anything. Did I log in? So it tells you the business types, like if you want to register. So this is great because if you have a little bit of questions, you can kind of see what those different corporations. One thing that we didn't talk about today, I'm sorry, we didn't really talk about, was nonprofits. You can also register as a nonprofit, but a nonprofit is kind of, if you want to start a nonprofit, you need to do a little bit of studying up because there's a lot of legal restrictions related to taxation and nonprofits. So you can register that here. If you're interested in nonprofits, ask a nonprofit how they do it, and most places will tell you, but that's a different conversation for a different time. You can look to register a trade name so that's your business's name. So if you are a sole proprietorship, but you don't want to be known as like Greg Brightville, you can register as a name. If you are signing up as an LLC, you automatically have to register a trade name because, again, an LLC and some of these other more legal requirements, the company is separate than the person. So you would have to make a name. You could renew it. You could check your taxes. A lot of really great things. There's a lot of really great resources on this. So if you're curious more about like what type of business that you need, I love Maryland's website about this. They have so many resources available to kind of help you understand before you get into the situation of what type of business you have. I'm not going to go through the process of registering a business in front of you all because I don't want to register a new business. It is really easy when you do it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact the state. They've got a really great chat support. They do have a phone number you can call. However, just so that you know, we are currently experiencing a pandemic and wait times are very long. All these things are really going to be helpful for you. So anybody have any questions?
We do have some, Greg, if we could get to those now, if that's okay.
Let's do that.
Okay, we've got a couple. First one is, are the business fees smaller in Delaware and Virginia?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes. Well, yes and no. I don't know the business fees for Delaware and Virginia. What I do know is some states it's free. So like some states it's like $25 a year if you're filing as an LLC. Why Maryland wants to charge me $300 a year, I don't know. But yes, there are different fee structures. But just so you know, I mean, unless you live and actively do business in the state that you're filing in, I wouldn't try to play that game of like dancing around, trying to get away from Maryland's filing fee. And so, yes, different states do have different filing fees. Different states have different registration fees. It really varies. Each state kind of monitors their own businesses. And so when you're registering beyond your EIN, which is federal with the IRS, your company has to be registered in the states you're doing business. And then if you're doing business in multiple states, it does complicate it. So just be aware that, yes, totally. If you live in Delaware and you're doing business in Delaware, they may have a different cost, register there. But if you're registering in Delaware, but you think you really do most of your business in Maryland, if you're a startup business, people pay people a lot of money to kind of do that stuff because it's really complicated. And you're also going to have to change the way that you file your annual report and your taxes.
Gotcha, thank you. All right, we have another one. Is it possible to section off parts of a business to be one part sole proprietorship and the other LLC, should you choose?
Yeah, so I've actually tried doing that, and it does get funky because if you're going to get an LLC, you're going to be paying the $300 a year no matter what. So if you're going to have an LLC, just stick with the LLC and then avoid the sole proprietorship. The reason being is because you're just going to start getting confusing in your taxes. And if you have, unless they're two completely separate businesses, so let's say, for example, if I start another job where I'm not consulting, but I'm selling, I'm not an artist, but if I'm selling art, one day, let's say I get into art, I could register those as separate companies. But if I'm doing the same thing for both, it's going to get a little messy and it's going to get a little confusing when you're trying to file your taxes. Long story short, if you're going to register, if you're like, maybe I want to have that LLC for a little bit of protection, no matter what you do, you're going to be filling out the annual report. No matter what you do, you're going to be paying the $300 annual filing fee. No matter what you do, you're going to be paying the $100 registration fee. So I say, if you're going to have an LLC, just stick with it. And if you don't want an LLC and you feel like you're comfortable with sole proprietorship, then just stick with one.
Gotcha, thank you. All right, we have one more. Does MBE, which I think stands for the Minority Business Enterprise, help for visibility of the company, like as a way of promotion or advertising? I have my business on it, but I don't get many leads.
I don't know too much. There are a lot of really fantastic business bureaus that can help a little bit with this. If you're looking, though, to specifically advertise for your company, first off, make sure that you have a website because people will Google you, and make sure that you're understanding that your website in many ways is your advertising. I don't know enough about the MBE to really be knowledgeable and give you a good answer, but I would say if you are trying to look at ways to market yourself, look at more than one venue, more than one way to market your business. Think of it this way: if you're starting a business and you want to make money, first off, it takes money to make money. So you need to probably be spending a little bit of tiny money on whether that is putting in Facebook marketing or printing flyers or spending time, which time is money in the business world, spending time making calls, contacting people. Some of the work that I do, while I am recognized by organizations, I still do other ways of getting my name out there to make money. So definitely, if you're interested in the MBE, contact them to see kind of like how they get the word out. If you're paying fees to be registered in an organization, then you pretty much should also be contacting them saying like, how are you using this money? How are you getting my name out? What is the value that I'm getting out of this relationship?
Great, thank you. That's all the questions that we have. So if anybody has the last one, please put either in the chat box or the Q&A, either one right now. And Greg, I'd really like to thank you for this great information. It is invaluable. And I have two entrepreneurs in my family as well. And we will certainly be passing this information on to them to make sure they're checking that Maryland website in case there's any concerns there.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely check it, because there's nothing worse than when you are like, oh boy. And businesses, running a business is very much a learning process. And so I definitely think if you are interested in starting a business, you got to do your homework. But don't be intimidated by it, because starting a business is really empowering. It's kind of fun. Like, you get to be your own boss. Like, nobody tells me what I can do with my business. Now, they tell me my 9-to-5 job all the time, and I have to do whatever the University of Maryland, Baltimore says. But when it comes to my business, I run the show. So it's really great. But you don't have to have a degree in it, but you should at least maybe read some books or really do some good research. Know the things that you're required, do some research on the state's website, because when it comes to business, it's easier to be proactive than reactive. And so you don't want to be in a situation where you file your business and then you didn't file your annual reports for several years, and then you come in and then all of a sudden you have to refile your reports. But then if you didn't keep track of your expenses and your revenue, then you don't have stuff, and then automatically you're going to start sending out red flags to the IRS and the state. So do your homework before you really start on this, and just start planning and documenting and keeping things in one area, so that you start separating those, whether it's your personal expenses and your business expenses. Even if you're a sole proprietorship, you should still be looking at your business expenses should be still put into a different pot, whether that's a bank account or even just an Excel doc where you're tracking it.
awesome. Thank you so much. We have a comment that is very helpful, especially with the fees and the sheet on deciding on the right structure for your business. So this has been incredibly helpful. A lot of times we see that entrepreneurs, as you mentioned, may be really good at what service or product they want to sell, but the structure of the business and the administration part of it is hard. So we really appreciate you providing this information. And everyone, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us today. We hope that you will find the other webinars for our Small Business Success Week helpful as well. We have one tomorrow with the Maryland Attorney General on cybersecurity, and we have one on Friday on finding business funding. So thank everyone for attending on behalf of the Cash Campaign. Thank you, Greg, for all this great information, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. This is being recorded, as we said in the beginning, and will be up on Cash Academy next week in case you would like to view it again or send it to a friend or family member.
One last thing really fast, something that if you all are also interested in entrepreneurship, and you are looking more to building entrepreneurship technology, and you have an idea, the University of Maryland has a center called The Grid. And what it does is it actually teaches basic entrepreneurial skills, how to trademark if you have a patent or if you have a trademark or a copyright. It's completely free. All of their workshops are also online. So go to the University of Maryland, Baltimore, not College Park, Baltimore's website, and look up the GRID, the Graduate Research Innovation District, and you can see some of the workshops that they have available pertaining to career development or entrepreneurship. So check that out as well. It's completely free.
Thank you for that additional resource. Appreciate that.
Well, thank you all for having me. If you have any questions, I can just sit here for the next few minutes. Otherwise, feel free to email me if you have any questions that you didn't get answered.
Great, thank you. I will, somebody asked about GRID. So it was the Graduate Resource Innovation.
The Graduate Research Innovation District. I can share that, Maryland GRID. Here we go. I'm going to share this in the chat with you all. There we go. So the GRID is just a really helpful thing. I work with them quite closely. They also have free workshops. I've been working with them on career development series. So if you want to see me speak about public speaking, they have recordings on their website of already done businesses, all kinds of great stuff. They like what I showed today, but even more extensive.
That's great. Thanks for the question and thanks for putting that in the chat. Okay, everyone. Well, I think with this, I will end the recording and we'll work on getting this out of the Going Cash Academy. Please continue to check out the webinars there and please stay safe and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks.